By this point, you are probably this close to starting your graduate application. You have your personal statement and your letters of rec all ready to go, but now you have to figure out your writing sample, and you have no idea what it is, what it's about, or what are the most important aspects of it. Well, don't worry, because in this video, we're talking just about those things. So first, what is a writing sample? Well, a writing sample is a document that is usually requested by a grad admissions committee to assess an applicant's aptitude, preparedness, ability to engage in academic or graduate level discourse. Specifically, they're trying to see how prepared you are as an applicant to be able to write, think, and participate in academic discussions, thought processes, skill sets at the graduate level. So a writing sample is super important because it's not just about demonstrating a topic you know or sharing something that you did once before that was a good grade, but instead it's the first time a graduate admissions committee gets to see you as a prospective student and evaluate, do they think you're ready for this challenge? Do they think you're ready to be in the graduate program? Now, generally, writing samples can be anywhere from 8 to 30 pages, though they will vary based on each application. And it is super important that you make sure you are abiding by the requirements or the specificities that are outlined in your application. So even though I'm giving you this broad number, 8 to 20 or 8 to 30, it's important that you are focusing on what is being asked of you in the application and getting as close to those questions or to that requirement as possible to make sure that you are perceived as a competitive applicant. But okay, you're probably somebody who may feel like, I do not have a 14, 15, 20 page document that is just ready for me to submit to grad school, especially if it has to be connected to what I want to research. And that's totally fine. I do think it's important to start off saying your writing sample does not have to be tangentially, somewhat, even remotely related to the research topic that you are applying to, or even the research department that you are applying to. Instead, you want to make sure that it's a document that is demonstrating good and thoughtful writing. And so what I suggest, instead of trying to go back to the drawing board and writing a 30-page paper on your own or writing a 15-page paper on your own as you're preparing for graduate school, instead think back to your undergraduate days, or if you're somebody who's writing in work a lot, think back to your job and see what writing were you doing or have you done that received a lot of positive marks or feedback that you can either take and expand on or combine with another writing to bolster it up and make a good writing sample. So while you might feel like you have nothing that's good enough or nothing that's related, the point of the matter is it doesn't have to be the world's most refined research document. It just has to be well written, thoughtful, and concise. Which leads to, what are the most important aspects of your writing sample? Something that I do think it is important that you are able to demonstrate in your writing sample is applied research skills. Now, again, don't feel overwhelmed. This doesn't mean you have to go get in a lab or go spend a year in another country to write ethnographies, but instead it's saying, do you know what it means to collect information, to interpret that information based off of some type of standardized approach? And so for me, in my undergrad, I wrote a history project, and it was all about Napoleon and his rhetoric and how that led to the liberation or the revolution of Haiti. And so while I am somebody who does not study anything about Napoleon, and in fact, don't know anything about Napoleon outside of that paper, as a history student, I was able to do textual analysis, archive analysis, and read a bunch of documents from colonial periods that I included into my paper. Now, this didn't require me to travel to Haiti or to travel to France and dive into the archives or do real deep research. I was really doing it through a bunch of books that had references to these archives or references or photocopies of these letters or documents, and I was making my own thoughts based off of that. So again, don't overthink it and think you have to to do all this extra work to make a perfect document. Instead, what's important is you're demonstrating you know how to collect data, be it from a variety of different ways. It could be, archival, it can be textual, it can be visual analysis, it can be interviews, surveys, the list can go on, and it is going to be based off of your undergraduate major. But generally, if you did any research project in undergrad, you're already starting that process of collecting data. So you don't have to overthink it or think you have to do more than what you've already done. The most important thing is just to make sure somewhere in your written sample that there is some information that you are collecting, interpreting, and demonstrating why it matters. Which leads to the next thing that your writing sample should be, and that is concise, clear, and well written. And what this means is you want to make sure you are submitting a document that has as little grammar mistakes or issues as possible. You want to have something that makes sense. It's not going on and on. It doesn't have a bunch of tangents. There aren't any comments or random notes or inconsistent formatting. You want it to look as clean cut and thoughtful and easy to read as possible. Now, this doesn't mean you have to submit something that's perfect. I say it all the time. There has never in the history of my life been a single application that I didn't look back on and find at least 1 or 2 typos, which will forever be the bane of my existence. So don't stress yourself out to be perfect, but do encourage yourself or work yourself to make sure it is as clean and concise as possible. And so ways you can do that is by asking friends or family to review it. It's also possible to download apps on computers. Like I use Grammarly. Oh my goodness, I love Grammarly. It tells me when my sentences don't make sense, when I'm missing commas, when things are spelt weird. And so by using products like that, or by asking friends or family for support, you can help craft a writing sample that looks very clean cut and prepared to be submitted and reviewed by an application or a reviewing committee. Also, clear and concise writing isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. And so if you don't know where to start, or you don't have families, or maybe grammar isn't your biggest problem and you just want some support, I do have a video that talks about writing mistakes that a ton of graduate students make and how to avoid them. And I will plug that at the end screen, and you should watch that video next to make sure that you're taking out these simple mistakes that definitely impact clarity and conciseness when it comes to writing. Now, having applied research skills embedded into your writing while also having a clear and concise writing sample will really get you far in your application process. But the thing that will get you over the top and make you look extremely competitive is by having good analytical skills. Now, again, writing is a skill set and it takes time to get good. So if you are submitting a writing sample and it's not the strongest analysis you've ever done, that doesn't mean you won't get into grad school. But if you can refine that paper and work hard to demonstrate a strong analysis, that will put you over the top of many applicants who will just be submitting things that have just summary, that may have compare and contrast. You will be demonstrating a very important skill for a graduate student that many people don't get until they are in grad school. The skills or the actions that you will participate in as an academic oftentimes are you making your own arguments and demonstrating why it is important. And so in your writing sample, if you are able to take your applied research, evaluate what you're looking at, and then bring a strong personal opinion or argument into that paper, and then prove why you are correct, that will put you over at least half of the applicants, because many people don't learn analytical writing skills until they are in graduate school. Now, I know this can be intimidating, and I'm actually in the process of developing a video that discusses how to write an analytical paper. So if that interests you, leave a thumbs up, and if I get enough thumbs up, I'll release it much sooner than later because I know people want it. But generally, when you are approaching an analytical essay, you want to make sure you are answering these questions. What is your argument, or what is your main point? What is the evidence or the proof that that point is real or important or true? Why do these pieces of evidence, or why does this proof matter? And how is this evidence or this main argument important to the greater world or to the greater thesis or to what's going on? By answering those questions, you are demonstrating a thinking process that is high-level academic engagement and academic writing. So if you can demonstrate that you have a main thesis, and in that main thesis, you have supporting paragraphs that support your thesis, and then in your supporting paragraphs, you have supporting evidence and a significant statement for every one of your claims, and then you conclude as to why it's important to the greater analysis or the greater concept of the paper, you are already many steps ahead of most graduate applicants, and that will definitely look good in your grad admissions review. Analytical skills in your writing sample will definitely make you look more competitive, but it won't necessarily make or break you if your whole paper isn't analytical, or if there is some synthesis, or if there is some compare and contrast. The most important thing is that your writing sample is clear and concise, that you are demonstrating you know how to collect and think through data, and that you are working towards or dedicated to developing good, thoughtful work. And so if you're interested in learning other ways to make your graduate application more competitive or how to get into grad school, I would check out my grad school admissions playlist. If you found at least 2 things useful in today's video, hit the thumbs up so YouTube can share this video with others who may need it. And as always, your support helps a small YouTuber like me continue to grow. So I want to thank you for always supporting, and I will see you next week.